Hello, Wolfpack! We're back, and today we're going to be adding another iconic horror fantasy show to our reviewing roster. We're about to begin our very first look at a classic horror series that everyone knows and loves. This supernatural series is known as The Twilight Zone. That's right, the 2000s reboot version of The Twilight Zone, which I'm very sure everyone loves just as much as the original. Yeah, I know. Out of all the cool Twilight Zone tales out there, we ended up with the 2000s reboot one. Why? Well, rumor has it that this reboot is widely despised by everyone. But to be honest, I don't think it's that bad. It has a large number of episodes that really fail, but it does have some hidden gems underneath all the crap. For those of you who don't know, The Twilight Zone was one of the most well-known horror anthology shows ever made, introducing us to a ton of grim tales of suspense that haunted our nightmares. Created by Rod Serling in the 50s, The Twilight Zone was designed as a horror series that not only scared us for fun, but dropped in clever subtext for us to learn from too. It was so popular that it was revived twice. One reboot in the 80s, and another one launched around the early 2000s. Sadly, the 2000s one was the version that quickly proved to be immensely unpopular, and many viewers declared it as the worst horror series ever. It really didn't help that this show tried to have even more hard-hitting social commentary and relied way too much on the celebrity guest stars. This show had Jessica Simpson as a babysitter, Xander Berkeley as a magician, Patrick Warburton as He-Man, and Usher as a psychic police officer. Yeah, you heard that right. Usher was a psychic police officer. But of course, who could forget our replacement narrator taking the helm from the deceased Rod Serling? Our new narrator is now Forrest Whitaker, who all you young people might recognize as polarizing Star Wars character Saw Gerrera. Yep, Mr. Whitaker is our guide through the Twilight Zone now. And to be honest, I think he does a pretty great job. He's no Rod Serling, but he did try to match the creepiness factor. As I said before, this show is not very well liked, but it isn't without its redeeming qualities. And to start off my very first Twilight Zone review ever, the first episode I chose is a wacky comedy episode. Because that's what everyone loves about the Twilight Zone. The comedy episodes. Yes, seriously, my first reboot episode is actually a very rare comedy episode that I actually liked. This is how we're starting out our reboot analysis, folks, so buckle up. Was this comedy adventure a decent story that granted the reboot a chance to prove its worth? Or should it be forgotten along with all failed horror stories? Let's find out. This is our first entry into The Twilight Zone.
A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are only that of the imagination. You're entering the Twilight Zone.
So our episode opens up with an establishing shot of a company called Trizad Pharmaceuticals, where the workers are hosting a birthday party for our main character, Charlie Stickney, a timid little doormat played by Anarchy. But the party's over once the jerk boss Rick enters the building, ruining everyone's fun. The boss is played by Christopher McDonald, who is typecasted as the generic idiot bully in literally everything he's been in. He was the idiot jerk on Thelma and Louise, the idiot jerk on Happy Gilmore, the idiot jerk on The Iron Giant, the idiot jerk on Superhero Movie, the idiot jerk on Beware the Batman, and of course, he's the idiot jerk here too. So, absolutely no difference in his usual roles. The boss is going to be our generic idiot bully of the episode, because he hates people having fun, and he picks on our nice hero Charlie. But he does give him a present, which is a motivator, that he bought at a yard sale. The jerk boss then demands that Charlie search through all the company's records for an important document that he needs, or else he'll fire him.
I want you to dig up all the original manufacturing from last April to about September. Look for any mention of Overture. 6 months of hard copies. I'll be 40 by the time I'm through. You find me what I'm looking for. By 3 o'clock today, we'll talk about promotion. What? Yeah, that's great. But by 3 o'clock, I'd have to clone myself and do what you gotta do. Okay, Charlie? Because if you let me down, you're fired.
Now, ordinarily I'd give you the details on our main character's life story, but let's have the narrator do it for me.
Charlie Stickney has never had quite enough confidence to stand up for himself. But today, different. Today is a day of reckoning. A test of character. Battle of wills. Thanks to a very unusual toy. Made in the Twilight Zone.
Who is this guy? How'd he get in here? So yeah, Charlie is a Fluttershy-level doormat with no respect. And of course, he's getting used by Idiot Bully. Charlie plays the doll to cheer himself up, but then the doll begins to speak directly towards him.
Today's the day. A little more motivation than that. What you need is an attitude adjustment. You think? I don't think. I know. And wipe that stupid smile off your face.
Yep, the doll's alive, but sadly he's not going to go on a killing spree like we'd all hope he would. The writers are going to go the comedic route with this one, everybody, so no killer doll murder. I know, right? This doll looks as creepy as Slappy the Dummy combined with that Riddler bobblehead, but it's supposed to be a motivator. Motivate you to get a restraining order, I guess. Also, this entire comedy episode is going to take place in this dull, boring office. Because the office world is funny?
Hey, Gilbert, what do you call it when a guy in middle management moves all the way to upper management?
I don't know. What do you call it?
A promotion.
Oh, thanks. Here's a memo.
Well, sometimes the business world's funny.
I know, it's odd, but let's just see where this is heading. Later that day, Charlie examines the doll box, where he learns that his doll is Mr. Motivation, a self-helping toy that can give anyone the push they need to be confident. But our hero thinks that there's more to him than meets the eye. But you don't want to know more about that, because we then get some awkward shipping moments between Charlie and his love interest, the sassy secretary Linda, where of course they begin a romance arc.
What you got there, Charlie?
Oh, just this stupid gag gift from Rick.
Charlie drops some exposition where he reveals that he's only keeping his lame job because he needs the money, which he uses to keep his elderly father alive on life support. Perfect lines to pick up women, right, boys? Nevertheless, we do get a lot of insight on Charlie's character to make him more realistic, which is a great bonus, at least until it takes a back seat for the comedy. Just as Linda leaves, the doll hits on her, and like an idiot, she of course thinks that Charlie was hitting on her, because don't these two sound so much alike?
Listen, I've got to get something done for Rick by 3 o'clock, or I'm going to be needing some major medical coverage.
Hey, nice fun.
Luckily, Charlie manages to play his cards right, and scores a date with her. Yay, his first victory in life. Our little buddy, Mr. Motivation, brags about how helpful he was, but Charlie removes his batteries and locks the doll up in his box. But just then, the jerk boss Rick calls Charlie up to his dark villain office to lecture him. Seriously, this is his office? How do you even get work done in this dimly lit nightmare room? This is where we get to the real conflict. You see, Rick reveals that he needs Charlie's help finding some lost documents so he can alter their information because they contain some incriminating evidence regarding the pills that the company sold off in his name. You see, Rick approved of some birth control pills that don't really work, even though he was supposed to monitor them, and...
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Alright, I'll give you all the short version. The idiot bully boss needs Charlie to find these lost documents so he can destroy them, because he committed company fraud and he will get fired for it. He's using Charlie to save his own hide and lying about giving our hero a promotion for helping him out. But naturally, the audience wants Charlie to do the right thing and stand up to his idiot bully. The boss tries bribing Charlie with the promise of a promotion, but we all know he's lying and essentially strong-arming our hero into doing his bidding. And of course, Charlie agrees to help because he can't say no. So then we get an office montage of Charlie looking for the lost documents. Eventually, Charlie recovers the lost files, but Mr. Motivation pops out to tell our hero how much of a doormat he is for allowing himself to be pushed around, where Charlie sees that the doll doesn't have any batteries in it, confirming that Mr. Motivation is alive and haunting him. So naturally, he goes nuts and assaults the doll in public like a maniac. However, the doll won't die because it's immortal.
The only joke I see is you.
Charlie then acts even crazier as he confronts his black best friend Joe, thinking that his coworkers are playing a prank on him. Yeah, not to offend anyone out there, but this side character is pretty much the cliché token black guy, because early 2000s comedy. So please don't take it personally when I call him the wacky black best friend when side characters like these play zero importance to the story at all and they use every stock black guy cliché in the book, which shows how painfully dated this writing can be at times. Anyways, the coworkers reveal that they have no idea what he's talking about, implying something supernatural is going on in this office. When he returns to his cubicle, he spots Old MacDonald grabbing the file, as he thanks Charlie for his hard work. But before he leaves, the doll attempts to murder the boss. But sadly he survives, and he angrily blames Charlie for his fall, rejecting his promotion. Yes, this guy is such a jerk that he's blaming his own loyal underling for his own clumsiness. And yes, the Mr. Motivation doll did actually try to kill him, as we see when Charlie uncovers him and asks him what he wants. Mr. Motivation tells him that what he wants is to put a stop to the evil boss man, whether Charlie wants to do it or not. Charlie finally confronts Mr. Motivation in the bathroom, where the doll informs him that he's not evil because he's trying to help Charlie out with all his problems. But we then get to this wacky moment.
I can't believe this. Of all the dolls in the world, I get the one that's possessed.
Hey, I may be a doll, but I'm still more man than you'll ever be.
Hurt? You in there? Oh, you're busy. I'll just hold it.
It's funny because he thinks that he's talking to the toilet. I don't know about you all, but me and my 3rd grade education find that so clever. Charlie desperately tries to get rid of Mr. Motivation, but the doll finally gets to him when he calls out our hero for being such a pathetic loser with no guts.
No big secret. Everybody knows you're gutless. That's why you need me.
No, I do my job. That is what I need.
You've got it all wrong, Chuck. Your dad doesn't want hospice care. He wants his son to be a man.
Sadly, Charlie trashes the wacky doll to get Mr. Motivation out of his life forever. But a few minutes later, he's called back into Idiot Bully's office, where we see that Mr. Motivation sent the moron a threatening message, causing Rick to assume that Charlie is attempting to blackmail him. Yes, the doll actually escaped from the garbage chute and broke into Idiot Bully's office to send him a message. How'd he do that? The corrupt boss offers Charlie that promotion to keep him quiet, but just to reassert his authority, he demands that Charlie work overnight, destroying all his incriminating papers. Charlie tells Rick that he can't do it because he has a date tonight with Linda. But like a jerk, the idiot bully calls his secretary into the office, where he orders Charlie to break their date, or else he's firing both of them. And just to make sure you see Idiot Bully as the villain even more, he needlessly acts like a jerk by making fun of Charlie.
Oh, jeez, Rick. Oh, this isn't good.
Mr. Motivation justifiably calls our hero out again for being a wuss, but Charlie reluctantly gives in and breaks off his date with Linda, where even she calls him out on his cowardice. Ouch, man. And I'm not going to lie, this leads us to a legitimately sad scene, where Charlie realizes how much he sucks, and he angsts on what a shy loser he is. Even Mr. Motivation stops talking to him completely.
Is it possible that we could go out to dinner another night?
Charlie, I've been waiting months for you to ask me out. It's your birthday, for God's sake. Why don't you just tell Rick to shove it?
I can't. I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to stand up to him somehow, Charlie.
Go ahead. Say it. I know what you're thinking. Same old Charlie. Same old gutless wonder. Oh. Now you let him talk.
Holy cow, is this actually a depressing moment? This Twilight Zone episode with a wacky talking doll in it actually had a depressing moment in the story, everyone. Good on you, Reboot. Good on you. So at long last, Charlie finally toughens up once he realizes that enough is enough, and he breaks into Idiot Bully's office to steal back the documents, where even Mr. Motivation appears in the room to back him up. Wait a minute, how the heck did the doll get into the room? I kid you not, the magic doll actually teleports throughout the entire building on its own without anybody noticing it. This leads into a big theory I have on the toy, but I'll get to it in the final thoughts. Back in the plot, Old MacDonald comes in, leading to the two fist fighting over the documents, which actually forces them out into the main work area, and the jerk boss assaults Charlie in public.
I don't care. You're not getting away with this.
Call the police? He just assaulted a man in broad view of everybody. Forget the documents. This is enough to get Rick arrested and thrown into prison. There are multiple witnesses who just saw their sociopathic, corrupt boss attacking a man in public. Case closed. Just call the cops. But nope, he doesn't get arrested for this at all because playground bully symbolism. So after Idiot Bully thinks he won, Charlie reveals that he stole the documents, and he exposes Idiot Bully in front of the whole office. Yep, Charlie at long last grows a spine and tells off Prick in a satisfying scene.
I will ruin you. What did you just say? Said, kiss my
Have any of you ever had one of those days where you ask yourself, how the heck did I get to this point in my life? I just want to remind you all that this is the Twilight Zone. This is the same show that brought us some of the greatest horror stories ever.
You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Wow, you got beat up by a doll, dude. And we're meant to see Charlie as the wuss, huh? So Rick is humiliated, Charlie is finally praised as a true hero by his office buddies. He wins Linda's heart, and the cool black guy gives him a high five because stupid.
High five! All right!
Why, even Mr. Motivation at long last gives Charlie his respect, making the two best friends forever. Yeah, the doll in this horror show is not a supernatural killer, but just our protagonist's dude bro. Expectations subverted. We cut to the next week, where our hero Charlie is now the boss, and everyone loves him. Also, I swear to you all, he even promotes the doll to his vice president. No, I'm not making this up. Mr. Motivation is now the company's vice president. I'm sure his resume was legit. But oh no, we see that Charlie is now a jerk boss towards his own employees too, meaning that the cycle of hate will continue.
The cycle continues.
Just kidding. He immediately apologizes to his employee later, after Mr. Motivation tells him to be nice. Yeah, the doll is his conscience now or something. But who cares? Charlie has finally achieved his well-deserved happy place in life, and his own sense of self-worth thanks to his magic doll, as we conclude this story on a perfect happy ending.
You the man.
No, you the man.
No, you the man.
All right. Shut up. I'm trying to get some work done. By listening to that little voice, Charlie's Stickney won the battle of wills with his boss and with himself. Another success story. Courtesy of
The Twilight Zone.
Never underestimate the little guy.
And that was the end of the Twilight Zone's wacky comedy tale, Mr. Motivation. How does it hold up? I know I'm going to sound like totally high for saying this, but I love it. I really, really loved it. I strongly recommend checking out this episode precisely for how stupid it is. It is stupid. Incredibly stupid. But you know, I think that the show's writers are aware of how dumb this story is, and they're just running with it anyway. There is, without a doubt in my mind, a hilarious sense of over-the-top comedy in this episode that's on par with the Haunting Hour's dumb comedy episodes The Walls and Grantpires. This whole episode just reeks of a cheesy, over-the-top Adam Sandler-style comedy, but with a supernatural doll mixed into it. It has all the cliches you'd see in a bad 90s comedy, like the doormat underdog, the out-of-your-league snarky love interest, the wacky black best friend, the boring office setting, and of course, the generic idiot bully we want to see suffering. In any other story, this exact setup would be a bad cliché storm. But the Twilight Zone seems to know how to mock these predictable stories in hilarious ways, and keeps us entertained as well. The spooky doll is the saving grace of this whole episode, because Mr. Motivation makes this story so unique, and prevents it from falling into a forgettable pile of 90s crap. It really helps that he's also funny on his own. I love that doll, and I was legitimately surprised that for the first time in a horror series, the supernatural doll was the hero of the story. Mr. Motivation looks creepy, but he was a funny good guy all along, which is pretty impressive given all the killer doll stories we've seen before, and will probably still be seeing in the future. Now, it's a little confusing on what exactly the point of Mr. Motivation is, because it ranges from a haunted living doll to possibly being the conscience of our main protagonist. When I first watched this, I thought that the doll was meant to symbolize Charlie's inner thoughts, since he's always popping up and telling Charlie to do what's right, even reappearing at crucial points in the plot. Like maybe the doll is only alive in Charlie's head and forcing him to grow up. But no, the doll is real, and it really is doing all these things like teleporting at random and interacting with the other characters. All the other characters in this do see and hear the doll's actions, and it has been moving on its own to do these actions off-screen. I kind of wished it was left ambiguous on Mr. Motivation's existence, but the main idea is still expressed flawlessly in the end. Mr. Motivation is that voice in your head that tells you to keep going, no matter what obstacles you face. He's a motivator who represents Charlie's need to grow a spine and stand up for himself. Charlie tries to avoid his advice and cower, but ultimately, the doll was right, because Charlie changing his life for the better is what gained him that happy ending. The doll wants to make his life meaningful by forcing our hero to grow stronger. As ridiculous as this episode is, I really like it because of how relatable it is. Charlie shows that any shy antisocial loner can go from a nobody into somebody better than who they used to be. I think it's inspirational in that goofy supernatural way. It does have some stupid moments still, like how the idiot bully just assaults our hero in the office while nobody does anything, but I get the point. This scene symbolizes a bully beating up a kid on the playground while the other stupid kids do nothing and gawk. But this is intended to lead to Charlie growing strong enough to stand up against his bully on his own. I'm just a sucker for the loser becoming an epic hero tale. Charlie standing up against his bully is meant to show how a kid getting beat up can still gain the upper hand and win in the end. The symbolism is slightly forced for the plot, but there's still potential. It's pretty silly, but it's also a comedy episode, and admittedly less forced than the show's worst episodes. Plus, Mr. Motivation beats up the moron, so it knows how to satisfy us comically. I know it seems like a stupid comedy episode at first glance, and it does have some stupid moments, like playing the token black guy cliches with a straight face, but it does have a very strong moral message underneath, and it does have some funny points in it to entertain. It's a cheesy comedy with a magic talking doll telling anarchy to get tough. It's not Shakespeare, but it does not deserve the hate that the rest of the reboot gets either. So I give this comedic Twilight Zone story a gold skull. It's far from perfect, but it is honestly actually funny, and it has a clever story about how a timid person can evolve into somebody better than who they used to be. I think it's inspirational, despite how stupid the story is overall. The worst part of this episode is whenever the cliches are played dead seriously, because it works a lot better balancing its wacky zaniness and serious messages on even ground. What more can I say? Mr. Motivation is a silly story that will really motivate you to be the best you that you can be. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos posted here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and if you're motivated enough to see more of my reviews on the Twilight Zone shows, then please, feel free to speak up in the comments section below. To find out more about what our channel does, consider checking out our Patreon or Twitter accounts listed in the description. It would really motivate us if you did. Anyways, I'll see you all later.